Debates, arguments, disagreements about schools, it's nothing new. Some people didn't like kindergarten when St. Louis first introduced it. They didn't want to hand their kids over to teachers, not that young. Missouri's first law requiring kids to go to school, vetoed by the governor. He said it was too expensive, too much government intrusion. The next governor signed it into law.
Yes, we can see that education is a field where there's a lot of conversation about reform and change and improvement.
Professor Laura Westhoff teaches the history of education at UMSL. I think about Sputnik and the national concern that we were falling behind.
Sure.
That seemed to be, though, an issue that was to be addressed in a public school setting.
Yes, that is very true. So I think that what we're facing in the conversation today is not a lack of attention to public schools and public solutions, but a proliferation of discussion topics and places and remedies that are both outside of the public school or that shape the public school very differently, and in some cases reflect a suspicion and hostility to public education. That certainly wasn't the case at the time of Sputnik.
There have always been choices: public, private, homeschooling, moving to another district. More recently, options for those with fewer resources: the city-county busing plan, magnet schools, charter schools. And then there was the state law that allowed kids in unaccredited districts to enroll in another district. It had its problems, but the legislature's effort to rewrite the law was vetoed by Governor Jay Nixon because under certain conditions, tax money could have been used by a student to go to a private school, a voucher option. For Nixon and others, that's a deal breaker. The idea has been around since the 1950s, thanks to economist Milton Friedman.
He came up with the argument that government's role should be to provide parents a voucher, a stipend, to choose whatever educational setting they want for their child.
The opposition was firm. Send your kid to any school you want, but not on the public's dime. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that vouchers are much more now part of the mainstream debate, partly because of the growth of conservative political power, but also because a lot of people agree that schools are so bad in some areas, something has to be done.
It's made for some interesting political alliances and shaken up kind of ideological conversations. I think it's important to scratch the surface, though, of the particular programs that are being laid out in any community. Is there still a commitment to and a conversation about the public good, which has historically been an important aspect of public education?
It's the public good, but it's also the private decision.
Yeah,
I act in the best interest of my child,
Sure.
not necessarily in the best interest of your child. Not
That's
that
right.
I don't want your child to benefit, but my first responsibility is to my own child.
Right, and so that's a tricky constitutional question, but it's also, I think, a moral and ethical question that people have to wrestle with.
For Stay Tuned, I'm Jim Kircher.